All right, and welcome back to another Raptors podcast. I am your host, as always, Lucky Roberts. And I know I said I probably wasn't going to come back after the Chicago Bulls game, but you know what? I waited, and I was like, let's give you guys a 3-game week instead of a 2-game week. And in my generosity, as always, that's what I decided on doing. And it was another late I wouldn't say late blowing of the game. The Raptors were behind the entire time against the Bulls, but another late loss, this time once again by 1 point against the Chicago Bulls. A hard fought loss for the Toronto Raptors. RJ Barrett has 32 points, and a lot of the shots you usually expect to see in these close games going to RJ Barrett, and he had a couple, and he made a couple there down the stretch. But a switch was made, I think, by Darko in this one, where they fed Grady Dick a lot there in the closing minutes, and he came clutch with some big 3-pointers, and there's some pretty deep ones, catch and shoot, off balance shots that are the type of shots that you would see very, very skilled 3-point shooters taking. You'd see only the best in the league, the Kyle Korvers, the JJ Redicks taking, running off of screens, and you see Grady Dick hitting these, and you think of just how good he can become, especially if he adds that finishing part that we've seen develop over the course of this year. And I think as much as we want to get RJ Barrett his touches in the final minutes, he's our de facto leading scorer. You also have to think in the future, who's going to be more of a central piece to the Raptors, because that's the person you want to develop their clutch time scoring. And you look at Grady Dick and you look at RJ Barrett, and you weigh the two. Obviously, right now RJ Barrett's a much better player, but if you look at the path that Grady Dick can go on, I think he can become a more valuable player than RJ. Because as much as I hate to say it, RJ fills up the stat sheet, but it's often for losing teams in losing games. Very similar to what DeMar DeRozan does. And you look at the Chicago Bulls, and you don't really see much of a difference between them this year and them last year. Realistically, they're 12 and 15. And then you look at the team that got DeMar DeRozan in the Sacramento Kings, and you could argue that they're looking worse just because he doesn't really fit what they do offensively. And so it's just a really awkward fit. And you see this similar stuff with RJ Barrett, is all I'm trying to say, is the Knicks all of a sudden without him become this wrecking ball. And the team that takes him looks very similar to what they did last year. And I know RJ Barrett has shown much better finishing chops, some better shooting this season than he did in a Knicks uniform. But it's just something you have to keep in mind, is how much does RJ Barrett contribute to winning? And it's something that scoring 32 points, you don't think you would question. And especially if this were 2000s, you wouldn't question it at all. I mean, RJ Barrett would be one of the best players in the league. But I think we've graduated to this point in our basketball discussions where we can look at an RJ Barrett and see, okay, he has a lot of points here, but what's the value of these points, right? Is he taken away from other people? Is he given to other people? You know, I know he had 9 assists in this one, but what is his actual offensive impact beyond the stats? And I don't think it's as grand as what you look at his point total to be. Anyway, and I think Grady Dick's impact can be a lot larger than his point total can be. As you see, plus 15 for Grady Dick, RJ Barrett just a plus 1 in this one. But the Chicago Bulls, realistically, with Scottie being out earlier in the next game, you don't think that the Raptors are going to win a game against the Bulls, even though the Bulls aren't that that good of a team. But it was good to see Lonzo Ball back, I think, first and foremost. He hit a really, really big time, basically the nail in the coffin for the Raptors, a three-pointer. Other than that, really not efficient. Hoisted up 8 threes, only made 2 of them, and then only shot one other shot than that. Did run the offense pretty well, had 7 assists. It's gotten to the point I didn't think he was going to come back. His knee had gotten so screwed up, but Lonzo Ball suiting up Once again for the Chicago Bulls, it's his ninth game this season. He's gotten 5 points, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, still building back up. I don't think he's going to be quite the player that we saw 2 years ago, and with this really strong start that the Chicago Bulls had 2 years ago with Lonzo Ball, I don't think he's going to be that player once again. And you can see they don't really believe that either, with him coming off the bench with Kobe White, Ayo Dosunmu, Josh Giddey all ahead of him, even Patrick Williams ahead of him in the starting lineup. And it was a great game for Josh Giddey and Vucevic. Josh Giddey just filling up the stat sheet as you would expect him to. 9 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals, a block, plus 12, 11 points. Vucevic obviously was their star in this one, especially without Zach LaVine in this game. But Vucevic with 24 and 5 rebounds, 2 blocks, 3 steals, hit 2 threes. And another player who's very similar to the RJ Barret conundrum is Zach LaVine, because how much difference does Zach LaVine make to an Ayo Dosunmu? I don't know I think the Bulls probably win this by 2 more points, 4 more points if Zach LaVine's in this game. I don't think it's that much of a difference. But either way, that's a story for another time. I've talked too much about that conundrum. Pat Williams, who I would like to see in a Raptors uniform just for the fact that he reminds me of Scotty with 6 points. Not really anything impressive other than the fact that they both went to Florida State and are forwards without a 3-point jumper really at this point. Scotty's developed a lot more of one than Williams has. And off the bench, it looked like the Bulls are pretty similar. Buzelis is getting a lot of time. He was +7. He was actually he looks a lot more developed than I thought he was going to be coming into the season. And yeah, he's earning some minutes with the Chicago Bulls. And, if you're earning minutes, you might find yourself on an all-rookie team, basically, with this year's draft class. Taylor Horton Tucker, wish he was a part of this year's draft class. He had 15 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. Some really efficient play, except for the 3-point line, which sort of has been his struggle throughout his career, Taylor Horton Tucker. But good that he's finding minutes here with the Chicago Bulls. And once again, down the stretch, the Raptors just don't have the juice to win this game, even with Grady Dick and RJ Barret. We really need Scotty in this lineup to win games, and if we really want to win games against good teams, we're going to need the 3-headed BBQ monster to even have a chance. Off the bench, Chris Boucher, 11 points. Good to see him back getting minutes, because he sort of lost favor there with Darko. 10 boards for Chris Boucher, and getting more minutes than Kelly Olynyk, which we saw sort of the duality with Kelly Olynyk, as he's not really moving the ball, and his defense is something that is obviously going to be weak, especially as he ages. And so 7 points, 2 steals, decently impressive, but wasn't hitting his shots. And so you're going to bring in Chris Boucher, who's always going to bring you energy and at least get you some rebounds and some blocks defensively. Jamal Shed was a real revelation throughout this game. Another player who sort of had lost his role with Darko, but found it in the third and fourth quarter and really was the bringer of this comeback, which the Raptors were down about 10 with a couple minutes left in the fourth, and all of a sudden go on a huge run, almost 20 points swing there for the Toronto Raptors to get back into this game and make it a 1-point game. And Shed was really the leader of it, earning a lot of minutes there in that fourth quarter. A +10 as a whole, 8 assists, a steal, 6 assists, a steal, 10 points, and didn't miss a shot, including a buzzer-beating shot, 3-pointer to make it a 1-point loss. Jacoby Walter, liked what I saw from him. His finishing is very, very reminiscent of Grady Dick, which I think is pretty funny, and obviously there was a lot of comparisons with him and Grady Dick in the draft, and you can sort of see it. Obviously, Walter really needs to work on his shooting, as Grady Dick has a lot more of a polished shooter and even a polished finisher at this point, but their finishing package is very, very similar, and it's funny to see that we just have a copy in back-to-back draft classes between these two players. And other than that, Davion Mitchell lost his minutes to Shed. Olynyk losing it to Boucher in this game. As let's start back at the beginning of the week with the Knicks and Raptors facing off. Another closely contested game throughout. The Raptors had a bit of a lead in the third. The Knicks had a bit of a lead in the second, but all in all, it was a very close game. And another game where RJ Barrett scores 30 points, but the Raptors lose the basketball game. And this is the game that we actually see Scottie Barnes go out injured. And I think it would be a much different game if Scottie Barnes didn't go out injured. But that's sort of how it goes with Scottie at this point. And I'm kind of worried with Scottie because he's getting injured a lot. And, obviously he has this loads of potential. But if he keeps getting injured and is not able to stay healthy and not able to stay on the court, you look down the line and you look at a guy like Zion and it's like, oh, he's this uber talented player, but if he's not going to be playing games, he's not going to be getting better. You're sort of stuck with what you got, and you're stuck hoping that your team can be good instead of realizing he's just not going to play. And I'm just hoping that isn't what we get from Scottie Barnes. Is once again he injures that ankle of his and is out for looks like the foreseeable future. And the Raptors are going to be happy to tank in that future as they continue their losing streak. Ochai was pretty good, but RJ Barrett, very incredible in this one, hit a lot of tough shots, but only a +4. Scottie Barnes plays 23 minutes. It was a +5 total, +10. It's not the be-all and end-all, but what really lost this game for the Toronto Raptors was their bench. Jacoby Walter, notwithstanding, as Jacoby Walter scores 19 points, a career high, obviously. 3 for 7 for 3, hit his threes in this one, and was really, really efficient. Still a -10, but not as bad as his other bench counterparts, like Davion Mitchell with another struggling game. He scored 8 points, but he scored 8 points efficiently, but was a -15. Mobo, Kelly Olynyk, defensively just couldn't crack it with each other, even though Mobo should be able to help with Olynyk's deficiencies. Didn't really work out that way as the Knicks went on huge runs with them, especially in the second quarter with them with them in the game. And it wasn't a good game for Agbaji or Dick, and it was really heavy lifting from Walter, from Barrett, and from Scottie Barnes when he was in the game. And the Knicks are just too good to be beaten by that sort of team. They have Mikal Bridges going off. They have Cat going off. They have Jalen Brunson, as always, going to be steady. Freddie sort of out there. OG with 14 points, sort of a typical OG game, hoisting up a lot of threes. And he's going to play good defense with 2 steals and 3 blocks, with 5 stocks. But offensively, not really adding anything than a couple of rim runs, alley-oops, and threes. But, that's all you need for him to do if you're the Knicks. Josh Hart as well, showing some heart in this one. And their bench, pretty cut and dry. Precious Achiuwa, Cameron Payne, Miles McBride, and that's it. And I'm going to play everybody a lot of minutes, and we're going to win the basketball game, and that's what the Knicks did over the Toronto Raptors. If we look at some of the team stats here, obviously the field goal percentage, 51% from the field for the Knicks, 42% from three-point line. They missed a lot of free throws, which brought the Raptors back into it, and it allowed, for a 11 rebound discrepancy with 17 actual offensive boards for the Toronto Raptors, which a lot of them coming from Jakob Poeltl, who always gets a ton, and then Mobo as well with 3 offensive boards. And yeah, the Raptors tried to do everything. They tried to get more possessions. They tried to scratch everything up with some full court presses, but once again, they just aren't able to quite scratch it and aren't able to hold it together for an entire game, and once again falter, as they would also falter against the Miami Heat. Grady Dick was amazing in this one. He had 22. RJ Barrett falling back to earth, even though he does have a triple-double with 13, 11, and 10. Only 5 for 18 from the field, and just couldn't figure out this Miami Heat defense with Jimmy Butler playing defense on him, who Jimmy Butler actually today dropping 87 fantasy points for my roommate Eli. Kind of incredible. Bam Adebayo with 16 boards over Pirtle. Actually, Pirtle doesn't play in this one. My bad. We had Bruno Fernando start, played 2 minutes, and was gone. And then a lot of minutes from Kelly Olynyk and Pirtle off the bench with 16-4. Doesn't really get enough boards. Mobo with also starting. He got 10 boards in this game. And it was just, once again, the Raptors without Scotty Barnes just can't really quite cut it. Even though they do go up by around 13 in the second quarter there, it's just not really sustainable for the Raptors here, even though we get 16 points off the bench from Podol, 12 points off the bench from Davion Mitchell. This team is just lacking depth. It's lacking star power. And the Miami Heat have just a little bit more of that comparative to the Raptors, with Tyler Hero going for 23, Bam Adebayo with 21, and Jimmy Butler always there if you need to get a bucket. But you look at their team, and they're not that impressive either. They got Haywood Highsmith, Duncan Robinson, just not a lot there. You've got Kevin Love off the bench still kicking. Jovic sort of taking his spot there. Plus 25 was Jovic. Plus 30 was Hero in this game. Incredible stuff. And then, Terry Rozier, Drew Smith, Triple J, Jaquez. And, just another tough loss. And the Raptors are going to continue to have tough losses as we look at the schedule in the future here for the Toronto Raptors. They play Brooklyn and then Houston next week. Then a back-to-back with New York as well. So I'll probably see you after the New York game, maybe. Probably December 23rd. After the New York game, I'll have a game. I'll talk about that one afterwards. A little bit late for me, tripping over my words. But I appreciate you guys for watching. Unfortunately, Scotty got injured, and this continues to be a trudging along season instead of an impressing season. But hopefully we'll be back and getting some more wins. And thank you for listening. I've been your host, Lucky Roberts. You can follow me on Twitter at Lucky Roberts if you'd like. I'm not your parents. You can do whatever you want. I don't really care. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week with hopefully some better basketball and some more wins.